fantasy first pick.
Thunderstruck! Thunderstruck! Yeah, Thunderstruck!
Welcome into the Fantasy Rant podcast presented by Stadium Rant. I'm your host, Dan Baker, accompanied by my co-hosts, Evan Gooding, Lee Cook, and Mason Beck. We're here to break down some more rookie wide receivers. Got a lot to talk about today. Some interesting names. We already covered about the top 6 wide receivers by consensus ranking. So we're starting to get into the nitty gritty. You know, those guys that we're going to have some differences about. So really looking forward to see where you guys land on them. But before we dive into that, we had a little bit of breaking news pretty recently, within a couple hours. Rashee Rice was warrant out for his arrest. Lee, you got the story up. Take it away.
Yeah, so I mean, we all kind of knew this was coming with everything that was going on, but arrest warrant, 8 felonies. We've got 1 count of aggravated assault, 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury, and 6 counts of collision involving injury. Not good. Not what you want to see as a Rashee Rice owner or as a Chiefs fan, especially. So we'll see what comes of it. You know, obviously, we talked about it a little bit before the show. He's a young guy who doesn't have a record. He's got fame, and he has plenty of money. We know the justice system treats those individuals a bit differently than any of us 4 would get treated. Won't get quite on the soapbox there. That's a topic for another podcast. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely right now in the time before the real NFL draft, before we get into any, you know, dynasty rookie drafts, trades. You know, that's why we all love dynasty. So you know, I mean, it's really a matter of, do you buy, do you sell, or do you hold Rashee Rice right now? Are you looking to get out of the business? Do you think it's going to be? Do you think he'll see jail time? Do you think this is going to significantly impact his career, or is this just a blip on the radar that he'll move on and get past?
I mean, I'm no lawyer, so I won't dive into the jail time part of it. You know, I don't feel like he probably will get jail time. I think it's probably going to be a suspension somewhere around 4 to 6 games. And then, you know, for me, this does not take too much. Like, his fantasy value does not dip in dynasty. We're looking long term. He's got a very long career ahead of him, young guy. So to me, this really doesn't take too much of a hit. If anything, I do think this is a buy low opportunity if you got any like nervous managers out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to honestly sell him just because there's a lot of uncertainty, and I mean, most likely he will be fine, maybe take a little bit of a dip, but there definitely is some risk keeping him. And I'd rather, you know, unless you're an entirely rebuilding team, even maybe then, I just think there's a lot of risk of what could happen. I mean, sometimes when players face legal issues like this, they never really come back. You know, media, the guilt, everything gets to them. And sometimes just organizations don't want to deal with players going through stuff like that. I mean, you don't necessarily have to sell them. I think there is definitely some upside that it's just a 1 year, you know, you're going to have one really bad year with him, because he is going to get suspended, I feel like, no matter what happens. So, I mean, if you really need someone this year, definitely be trading him out, looking for someone else to fill it. And like in redraft, I'd say avoid him pretty much at all costs until we at least know what the suspension would be.
Yeah, I do think that this takes a little bit more of a hit to his like career and his like overall value. I mean, just this offseason in general, he's taken a hit. He's take this out, take any of these charges out. They added Marquise Brown, and they're probably going to add somebody in the draft. So his value is already a little bit too high from where he was at before this happened. And I'm selling him. If I don't own him, but if I own any shares of him, I'd be selling him I'd be happy with 2/3. I would like to get obviously a second, and I would be willing to pay a late second for him, I guess. But I really am not that interested in him right now, and especially considering like how deep this class is too. Those 3rd round picks are going to be valuable this year.
So for me, you know, I mean, the kid's 23 years old. Obviously, as Mason said, for redraft, I mean, he's a flyer in the last round. But for dynasty purposes, he's shown that he can play at a pretty high level in the NFL, especially those last, I guess it was 7 to 8 weeks. I just don't think 2/3 are adequate. I mean, to me, and you might hit on a third this season because it is a bit deeper on wide receiver. But for the most part, I don't have much value on thirds in general. My philosophy is they're kind of throw-ins for the most part, lottery tickets at best. An interesting thing that I saw long term, if it does reach a 10-game suspension, so it's got to be 9 games or more, which I don't think is likely, but none of us are lawyers. We don't work in the NFL office, so who the heck knows? But if he gets suspended for 10 games or more, he does not accrue a year in the NFL this coming season, which adds a year on to his rookie deal. So just kind of, I'm not going to say it's a good thing, but it does tie him to Patrick Mahomes for an extra season. To me, the biggest concern with this is it does it become a pattern? Because and I can get on board with, if you think he's going to get in more trouble, it would completely destroy his value. A second incident would potentially tank his career. So I'm trying to get out ahead of that. But he's a 23-year-old kid. Hopefully he'll have some good voices in his ears and he'll be able to get his head on straight. And this is a one-time blip, in which case I would certainly buy him. We talked about it. I wouldn't sell him for. I think it would have to be a late first. I wouldn't sell him even for any second, just because he's proven. Not only is he tied to the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's proven that he can play at a pretty high level, and those guys are hard to come by.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, let's jump into Ladd McConkey. That's our first rookie wide receiver up to talk about. He comes in at 6 foot tall, 186 pounds, 22.3 years old. Fantasy Pros has him as the wide receiver 7 in this rookie class, and the wide receiver 53 overall. PFF has him 32nd on the big board. Could land, if that comes to fruition, that 32 spot could land on a very good team in the back of the first. So some of the positives that I saw: above average top speed, fantastic acceleration, really can just like stop and start so quickly. 0 to 100, real quick. He's got good flexibility in his hips. I feel like he's able to drop and get under defenders sometimes, especially off the line. And overall, I think that he is just a really good route runner and fantastic yak ability. So those are things that I'm looking for. Really, I mean, I won't get ahead of myself with the landing spot, but those are some of the biggest things I saw in his game. Evan, what did you see?
Yeah, honestly, seeing him go through the combine and run in the 4.3s, that was so surprising to me, because when watching his game, I don't see that speed, but he doesn't really need it to be effective. He's shown that he's been effective on tape too. I love what I see in his route running too. It reminds me a lot of a guy, but much better than this name that I will bring up in a little bit here. But I do love him, and I just, his ability to run routes so smoothly is wild, and you don't see that too often either. For size and speed, it's great. I love it. Age, hit it off.
Lee?
Yeah, I mean, so you definitely said a lot of it there, Dan, as far as the positives go. Like I said, the speed, the acceleration, the change of direction was a big thing that kind of stood out to me. We'll see. I mean, I know we'll go into the negatives in a second. The production profile is worrisome, to say the least, but we'll see. I mean, he's – the other thing is the pedigree, being at Georgia, they're turning out a ton of pros now. and a lot of those guys are having success. So, he fits the mold of what you're looking for in a lot of ways, but there's a few ways he doesn't, and I'm sure we'll cover that in just a second.
Yeah, I mean, you guys touched a lot of it. I mean, he's got good speed. He is a pretty good route runner. And then, I mean, yeah, his changing direction is good. I think there's a lot of definitely like trick play opportunities. I could see a lot of like kind of like Debo Samuel type plays. I don't think he's as, crazy as Debo. But I can see some sort of like kind of plays how he is. He's not going to be a running back like Debo was that one season, but I could definitely see some kind of, he's that guy that he works into those weird plays where he just get those big plays off of his speed. I'm honestly not the biggest on him though, but I mean he's fast, and sometimes speed is really all you need to get a couple big plays in.
Yeah. I mean, Evan, you touched on it. He's got the 4.39 40-yard dash. I did feel like it popped up on tape, and then that change of direction we were talking about. Uh, Matt Harmon's reception perception. He had the profile on him come out pretty recently. Out of all of the players that he's charted so far, so we got Adonai Mitchell, Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ricky Pearsall, Roman Wilson, Roma Dunze, and Xavier Worthy, along with Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey made 2 defenders miss at the highest rate by a long shot, 10% more than the next highest player on that list. He can make multiple guys miss after the catch. And then we talked about it a little bit, but the route running, to put some numbers to it, he was in the 85th percentile against man coverage, 81st percentile against zone. This is going to be my main negative on him. He really needs to work on his release. I think he will end up being a slot wide receiver where he won't have to face press coverage too frequently. But if he wants to expand on his role, he's going to really need to work on his release package. He was in the 8th percentile against press coverage. So really speaks to what I saw on film. One of the many reasons why I love reception perception. Does a great job. I'll probably talk up Matt Harmon's reception perception a dozen more times throughout this wide receiver series we're doing here. But did anybody else have any other negatives, like glaring negatives, other than that in the production profile?
Yeah, just production. I mean, 30 receptions in 9 games it's not great. It's not great.
Not great, Bob.
One thing is he is very skinny, which his size is definitely not the best, which in the NFL could lead to some injuries. His strength isn't there either. Obviously, that does kind of contribute to his size as well. And he struggles, like you said, off the release. He struggles to fight through contact and really get open. And then he's not good at 50-50 balls. That can take away a lot of third down situations where the ball is passed his way. If it's tight coverage, he's not going to be the guy to go to.
Yeah, in his 3 seasons, he only had 19 contested targets thrown his way. Caught 10 of them. Not a bad percentage or anything, but like you said, it doesn't look like he's going to be the guy where he's someone draped all over him. Don't throw up the shot. All right. So the player style comp, I thought mine was kind of interesting. I got Jaden Reed. I felt like there was a lot of similarities in their play style, make more happen after the catch than before. Still a good route runner, and again, just a lot of close to the line of scrimmage, yak opportunities. I could see him being used in a similar way.
I like that read. I had him as taller, faster Hunter Renfrow. With the way you were talking about his hips, actually, the flexibility of his hips, Hunter Renfrow has actually got that trait too, and I feel like they run their routes very similarly. So
yeah.
So I already see this is going to be the second week in a row. I don't know what's happened. Maybe the eclipse did something. We knew it was coming. I literally have faster Hunter Renfrow. And Dan kind of touched on it. To me, he's a slot receiver in the NFL. I don't know that he'll ever be an outside guy. And that does worry me a little bit with where some of the draft stock is, because if I draft a wide receiver at the back end of the first or even the front of the second, I am expecting him to be a little bit more than just a slot only guy.
Mm-hmm. I see him kind of as like faster version of Deontay Johnson. I mean, just good route runner. Not necessarily the best at contesting, making these contested catches. But yeah, he definitely is faster than DJ, or Deontay Johnson. I'll say that so we don't get confused with DJ Moore. But
by 0.04, he's faster.
Yeah, but
actually no, 1.04 or 0.14. Yeah, sorry.
Was that the combine time?
Yeah, 4.53 for Deontay compared to 4.39 for Lad.
Okay.
What a name.
Yeah, Lad. He's a lad.
I mean, he has a great name. If he can make it,
Name
we'll
value,
have fun.
super elite name.
Just seeing all the McConkey jerseys.
He's a
Oh,
jolly
man.
good lad.
Right. And if he goes to this landing spot that I have him, the fans are going to go crazy. There's going to be a lot of jerseys sold. I have him going to the Buffalo Bills at the 28th overall pick.
Yep. I like that a lot. I don't think that my that's definitely more probable than my landing spot. I think he'd be good under Carolina. I think he'd be great to learn under Thielen and Deontay. Thielen, another player comp, I would think would be pretty relevant for that too. But yeah, Carolina, I think they would have to trade up for him if he goes in the first, I believe, because they don't have a first. But yeah, I could also see him going in the second.
I've got him going in the second to the Steelers.
Oh, I would hate that. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see him going in the second. I mean, Bills could use someone like him, just a fast, speedy guy. Just Josh Allen, we know how he is with the deep ball. But I also had him going to the Steelers in the second. I mean, like I compared him to Deontay Johnson. They definitely do need another route runner. So I could see them, maybe Steelers trading up a little bit in the second. But yeah, I could see him going there.
Right, yeah, because they have the 51st overall pick. I don't think he'll make it that far in the draft, so maybe they would have to trade up to get him. I do think that would be a great compliment to George Pickens' play style. So I like what you guys are saying there. Let's wrap up. Lad McConkey, where would you take him in a super flex rookie draft?
I got him at the 111 personally.
Okay, fair. Lee?
I got him at 112 or 201. So you're right there in the same range.
Mason?
I got him like 205, 206. You guys are definitely higher up on me, or higher up on him than I am.
And I'm going to jump. Oh, sorry.
I'm not really drafting him. I mean, maybe it's the correct landing spot, but I think there's better receivers in this draft.
Yeah, and I definitely think my landing spots, my idea of him going in the back of the first is swaying me a little bit, but I do have him at the 108. I have him as the fourth wide receiver. I'm high on Lad McConkey. I think he's going to get fed. I think he's going to be not to the same pedigree because obviously Puka just had a historical season, but I think he can be that same type of route runner that has success at all levels of the field. So
you've got him
I'm
above
big on
Brian Thomas Jr.?
Yep, I put him above Brian Thomas Jr. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a great athlete. He's very talented, but overall, he's a deep threat that makes too many basket catches. I've learned my lesson from QJ, so I'm staying away. I probably won't get too much Brian Thomas Jr. this year in rookie drafts, but not knocking him. He's definitely a great talent. Let's move on to our next player here. I think this is going to be a little bit another divisive player. We got Adonai Mitchell from Texas. He's 6'2", 205, just 21.3 years old. We're going down the Fantasy Pros rookie ranking positionally. So wide receiver 8 for them, wide receiver 55 overall in Dynasty. And then PFF has him going at the 30th overall pick. Evan, I know you got some hot takes on this guy. So what are you thinking here?
I love AD Mitchell. He's that. When I was watching Xavier Worthy to kind of and him, he just stood out more than Xavier Worthy, and I'm pretty high on Xavier Worthy as well. But he's a go getter. He goes up, gets the ball, contested catch beast. But that's not all that he has. When that's all that they have, that's what you have to really raise your red flag. But he could rack up TDs. He's caught 11 touchdowns last year. And he's so fast for a big X receiver running in the 4.3s. So I love everything about him. The only thing is that the consistency is a little off, but we'll get more into the negatives.
Lee?
Yeah. So again, I don't know what the heck's going on here, but me and Evan, same page. I have Adonai Mitchell as my number 5 wide receiver after Brian Thomas. 6'3", 205 and runs a 4.34. You can't teach that. I talked about that a little bit last week. You can't teach that. You really can't train that. That's just God-given athletic ability. Just getting into some of the nitty-gritty, I mean, the long speed, obviously the short speed, the long speed, the speed in general. He's very flexible. He does have a lanky frame, but he's not great at route running, but I feel like that'll get better. And it's not bad. It's just not standout, especially when you watch some of these other guys. But he attacks the ball away from him as well. So, you just kind of combine some of those traits with just his athletic profile. And to me, this is a guy who could be one of the values of the draft. And I mean, obviously with most of these guys, especially outside of the top three, it's going to be landing spot dependent. And we'll get into that in a second because I see a good one for him. But if he gets in the right situation, he could have the best rookie season of any of these wide receivers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The ones that we're talking about today, or any of them?
Any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's big. That's big, and I know how big you are on Malik Neighbors too.
Very big on Neighbors.
This guy.
obviously
Remember
Mark
last week we talked about how there wasn't an ocean of distance from him and Neighbors. This is one of the guys. That is.
This is the only guy.
Yeah.
And I feel
Marvin
like
Harrison-
Neighbors quite a bit more, but like I said, so it's situation dependent. When I tell you my draft spot, this will make a little more sense. I still like Neighbors as a long-term prospect, but I think Mitchell could be like I said, I just said I think he could be easily a top three as a rookie out of his wide receivers, easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could say easily top four, but I think that Odunze, Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr. are in a completely separate tier than all of the guys we're going to be talking about today. That's just me personally. You guys touched on a lot of the positives that I had down here. On top of, he's a smooth mover for a guy that's as big as he is. He's pretty agile. It's not like crazy where he's going to shake and bake a ton of guys out there, but he moves well with the ball. He can pretty immediately understand where the open space is after the catch. And he's hard to take down. When a guy is 6'2", 205 and moving at 4.34 speed, that's hard to tackle. So really think that there's going to be some opportunities for him to get it done after the catch if he falls into the right team that can scheme some open space for him. But like you guys said, a little bit inconsistent play. I think we hear this a lot for both Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, but he does take some plays off from time to time. If he's not like the main read, if it's not clearly going to him, he kind of jogs some routes there. But overall, he is a solid route runner. 84th percentile against man, and it was 83rd against press. Where he falls short is zone, and we've talked about it a ton. NFL's more and more zone heavy the last 3 or 4 years. So that's going to be something where he needs to improve. I think that just even like finding the soft spot in the zone and slowing down, settling into it for his quarterback, that will help him out a lot. Mason, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got a lot of speed is there 100%. I mean, you guys touched on pretty much everything I had to say. Yeah, like Lee said, this is my main point of why I really like him is he does have that ability to tack the ball when it is not directly thrown at him. He's going to make some nice catches, and that mixed with speed is just, I think that's really good going into the NFL. You can hit him on the deep ball, and you can also, he can make little slot plays, curls. I think he's going to be one of those guys that does definitely have that ability to run all type of routes. His route running will most likely improve once he gets some NFL coaching. Yeah, no, I really like him. And I mean, the spot I have him going to, I definitely think that's going to make him very, very valuable. And it's going to boost him up a lot into rookie drafts.
All right. Really quick to touch on the negatives. He's not a contested catch guy. He should be with his size and weight. But overall, in his career, 30 contested targets, only 13 contested catches. That's a 43.3% contested catch rate. He never had a season of more than 11 contested targets. So, again, despite his size, his quarterback's not taking a lot of shots to him for those 50-50 balls. And, the production profile, he had the 11 touchdowns, and last season, 845 yards. That's solid. But before that, seems like maybe a lost season. I can look into that more, but never had over 450 yards outside of that junior year there.
He was hurt a lot that last year at Georgia. He was hurt a lot, but I concur that the biggest thing that scares me is the 1 year breakout. You didn't see the production at Georgia, but sometimes guys are just in the wrong situation. And obviously, playing against SEC defenses is a bit different than playing against Big 12 defenses. But being a vocal point of the offense is where I think the big difference came in for him. So just I know we're on the negatives, but I think the age, being 21 years old is another positive for him. He still has a lot of improvement. He hasn't – a lot of times NFL teams are scared of taking a guy who's hit their ceiling. He definitely has not hit his ceiling. The inconsistency is a bit worrisome. Hopefully that can be coached out, when he gets to the league. And he's not not a great blocker. I mean, he's got the size to be. Again, I think some of that may be just technique and want to. But again, you get him in the right system with the right guys to mentor him, and I think that can go away.
Yeah, I think he's just more like if you watch his highlights, I don't think you see a single crossing route. It's all just straight line running. And so I would love to see a little bit more versatility in his route running. I think he can. If you actually watch his full tape, not just the highlights, you will see some of that. And I think he's capable, but definitely not something that I would say he's good at right now, because there's just I don't see it.
Yeah, a big negative I saw with him is he's not very good at blocking, which could result in a lot of him not being on the field as much necessarily. I mean, he probably won't be in as much during run plays. That could also lead to him not being on the field as much during play action plays as well. And that's a real big negative I saw of him. He's not necessarily the best yard after catch guy. He sometimes is very slow to switch from receiver to runner. I mean, it's not as he'll be able to get the deep catches and stuff, but will he be able to extend the play? That's a little unknown. I mean, he's shown flashes of it, but he's also shown flashes that he's not very good at it. So who knows? But I still think that's something that definitely can be coached out once an NFL coach is with him a year or two, can really show him how to switch into a runner a lot better.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on. Player style comp. Lee, who do you got as the closest comp for?
You're gonna take mine. I know it. He's taking mine. It's happening.
This is a lofty one, but I mean, if you've heard me talk, you would probably expect one. I think he's a little bit faster CD Lamb.
Yeah.
Whoa. No other comps, no other detractors. He's got all of the same skill set, but he's faster.
I think he's going to have that level of production in the NFL.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I'm surprised you don't have him wide receiver 4 above Thomas then.
I'm going to discuss the scenario when we get to the draft where he could go overrun him. He could move up to 103 or the third wide receiver.
Very interesting. Evan, who do you got?
I mean, I definitely see you're not the only one that has the CD Lamb comp either. I Googled around, and there's a lot of people that are comparing him to CD Lamb, which I think is a bit outlandish, but I think a little bit more fair would be like a faster George Pickens.
Yeah, that's kind of what I saw in this game as well. George Pickens George Pickens is a contested catch monster. My player style comp, I wrote down Chase Claypool, but not a Chooch.
AD will be a contested catch monster in the NFL. He will be. I get that it didn't show statistically with this last year and in college, but he will be a concussed. He has that skill set.
Chase Claypool,
but not a Chooch. The big important factor there.
Yeah.
I think that he's definitely much better than Chase Claypool. It's just the physicality. He's a big dude, runs fast, got some weight to him. Chase Claypool obviously did not pan out. I think we all saw, when he entered the league, he had all of the potential in front of him and did nothing with it. I think Adonai has all of that potential and will do something with it. It's just I don't quite see him as high as you guys do. Mason?
I see Josh Reynolds. I think he's going to do a lot better than Josh Reynolds has done on a consistent basis. But we've seen some games where Josh Reynolds has really gone off, and I think that's kind of what Mitchell can do. I don't know. I see some Josh Reynolds. I do think he will be a lot better, but that's kind of who I saw.
All right. I'm interested to hear the landing spot you got, Lee. Where you got?
So this is part of my question, and I will go ahead and pose it to you guys after I say the landing spot. But I got him going to Buffalo as wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen. Let's say that happens, and he's Buffalo's pick. And say Rome goes to the Giants or the Bears at 109 as wide receiver 3 behind Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Who has more value in their first 2 seasons? Josh Allen's wide receiver 1 or Caleb Williams wide receiver 3?
I see what you're doing here. Yes, no, I'd take Adonai in the first 2 seasons. It's just there's so much in front of Rome Odunze is the wide receiver 3 for a Bears team that's never had a 4,000-yard passer
Right.
going to get it done? Probably not. So, yeah, that's where I stand.
Mason, Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I got him going Buffalo as well.
Really?
That's why I'm
You're still that low on him.
I think him and Josh Allen would just be a perfect combo, and that's why I'm going to be drafting him, especially if he goes there. I mean, I just think he fits the Josh Allen kind of play style, being able to get these deep balls because of his speed, and then also being able to attack the ball a little away from his body. Josh Allen doesn't necessarily have the most perfect accuracy, enough to definitely get it done to where I do think Mitchell can make those catches that are a little bit off, that are away from his body. And I think he could be, he's not Diggs or anything, but I think he can be a pretty solid replacement for Diggs.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I guess I'm the differentiator here. I got the Steelers, and he's going to be learning how to do those contested catches from George Pickens over there. So don't got to worry about that contested catch problem. Okay.
Yeah,
so
George Pickens seems like a fantastic teacher.
monster.
I know anything about George. Kind of weird just calling him George, too.
How about blocking on this play? I knew I wasn't catching it. I mean, he does have the poor blocking in common with George Pickens. So,
I mean, it depends if you're blocking on the line. He's been shoveling people down onto the ground, eating dirt.
Until this episode, I've never called him just George.
Yeah.
They're just like, hey, there's George.
Hey, George.
Doesn't look like a George.
I mean, I feel like G-Pick would be a great nickname.
G-Pick. I
like
like it.
G-Pick.
Yeah, I like that.
I like it. Yeah, so my landing spot is not fun. I hope he does not go there, but I do have him going to the Giants at the 207. Really, really hope he does not land with the Giants. All right. And I know you guys got some spicy takes on this, especially if you're drafting the faster version of CeeDee Lamb. He's got to be 101, right?
Landing spot, like I said, it's all about landing spot. And the other guys' landing spots as well. I have him at 108 right now at wide receiver 4. I could see him moving up as far as 105, 106, depending on where Rome lands, depending on if he does. I don't think AD goes past Kansas City. I mean, and maybe this is just the delusional optimism, but I think if Buffalo doesn't take him, I think Kansas City takes him at the end of the round, at the first round. And I think either one of those situations, he's going to fly up draft boards. He will not make it past 108, and very likely he's going to move past Brian Thomas. Obviously, we got to see where he goes. But if he goes to one of those spots, he's going to strap a rocket to his back as far as draft stock goes.
100%. Evan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I also have him going at the 108. Me and Lee have been on point, too on point. It's kind of freaky on point lately. Yeah, I contradict a little bit on the opposite here. I do see it falling, if anything. I do think that this is pretty much his peak value, unless you're right with the landing spots. Then I could see him going up to 106. But he's pretty firmly, he's going to stay at that 108 for me unless I see something like pretty beneficial happening in the draft.
Yeah, I got him 108 to 109. I mean, he could move down. If he does end up going to the Giants, like Dan said, I don't think he's going to be there. But I don't see him going to the Giants in the second round. I like what Lee said a lot. I mean, Buffalo, Kansas City, those are two spots he definitely could go. If Niners don't work out something with Ayuk, I mean, they could be interested in drafting a wide receiver relatively early as well. And those are just three good landing spots. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I see him going. I really want to take him. The pick Lee sent me earlier this year in a trade, that's probably who I'm going to go. So thanks, Lee.
I'm drafting Marvin Harrison on the one you sent me back. So.
Hey. All right, I got him at the 201. Honestly, I have been kind of flipping back and forth between Troy Franklin and Adonai Mitchell. I think Troy Franklin's a much more crisp route runner, has much more awareness and a constant motor, whereas Adonai, not as consistent, tends to give up on plays sometimes. So that's why I got Troy Franklin ahead of him right now at the 112 and Adonai at the 201. Obviously, we've talked about a ton, but landing spot will change a lot. All right, let's move on. We got Keon Coleman out of Florida State. He is 6'3", 213 pounds, just 20.8 years old. Right now, Fantasy Pros has him as the wide receiver 9 amongst the rookies, wide receiver 58 overall, and then PFF has him as the 55th overall pick. I'll let you guys lead off here. I know I got some things to say about him, but Mason, what do you got to say about Keon Coleman?
I mean, he's got a really good build for the wide receiver position. And not just, true, like kind of X factor kind of build. I mean, I think that's what you're looking for when you're looking for the body size of a guy to play that position. He's got pretty good agility, good strength. He can definitely, get some contested catch, and he's got some, when the ball's up in the air a little bit higher than him, he has no problem bringing that ball down from what I saw. And I mean, yeah, a little touch on the negative. His speed isn't anything crazy or anything like that, but it's just his agility, and I think that's going to really get him open and be able to make these catches.
Okay. Evan?
Yeah, I mean, he's got that. He's the youngest. I think he's the youngest wide receiver in this draft, right? Yeah. So he's got that going for him. Size, great big catchability. And that's about it. That's where my list for the positives end.
Okay. Lee?
Yeah, so I would just to add, because you guys obviously hit on some of them, I think just his strength. He's not going to be a guy who's going to get pressed and knocked off the line, which is, obviously the NFL has gone to more zone, but ultimately the best corners, generally speaking, are the ones that can press and just, kind of shut receivers down before they ever get to their stride. He's not that guy. He's too strong. There's not a lot of cornerbacks that are going to be able to press him in the NFL. I think just, again, his build, I mean, he's your prototypical X receiver, and in the right situation, as pretty much every guy we're about to talk about, it's all going to be situation dependent. But he's a guy who really can excel if he's put in that right situation. And the other thing, even though he's, I wouldn't call him slow, but again, the size, the speed, even for his size, isn't great. The yak ability, he's a guy who doesn't go down easily, and he's got great yards after the catch ability, which in the NFL, it's all about those margins. So when you can gain that extra 1 to 2 yards, 3 yards to get that first down, or to make it a 3rd and 3 instead of a 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6, that is immeasurable. It's very important, and he's that guy. I definitely see him as a possession receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, and now you guys touched on a lot of what I was going to talk about. He did have a really bad combine overall. He had a 4.61 40-yard dash. I'm not weighing that too much into what I saw, because on film, he doesn't play that slow. He looks much faster than 4.61. But that prototypical X receiver build is really going to take him a long way. I think that is going to get him some decent draft capital. However, I just don't see it. I'm not going to get any of Keon Coleman personally. He had a 20th percentile success rate against man coverage, 59th against zone, and 19th against press. That's crazy low for a guy that's that big. Like that's not what you want to see. On top of it, he should be a contested catch king with the size and strength that he has. Last season, 30 contested targets, only caught 10 of them. Overall, he's got a 45.8% contested catch rate, but last season at 33.3, that's super low. And then on top of it, he hasn't topped 800 yards in college. He should, again, with the build that he should have had a lot more success at the collegiate level than he did. But he is very young, so maybe he's going to continue to build on that. And I do agree with you guys that he's got good ability after the catch. So room to grow, but a lot of the metrics really are not helping him out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on. Did you guys have any other negatives to add?
It really just hammered more down on the speed. Like that's really bad. The 40 time 4.61. I mean, it's not saying that he can't be great with that 40 time. There are greats that have run in the 4.6s. We're talking like Larry Fitzgerald, Jerry Rice, Chris Carter, Anquan Bolden. And I totally had this pulled up beforehand because I could not read that off the top of my head. But like it's not impossible for him to become very relevant, but I feel like it just completely shatters his ceiling and where he can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like I already said it a little bit earlier, the speed was definitely the most worrying factor. And then he doesn't necessarily have the best footwork, which isn't the best for route running, but that is also something that can be improved.
Yeah. One thing I was going to add really quick, again, Matt Harmon's reception perception. I got the charts up on YouTube if you want to check it out. He posts the types of routes you run and the success on each type of route. He was average on dig and curls, below average on every other single route except for flat routes. He's just not a nuanced route runner, and you're going to need more than just size at the NFL level unless you really have a coach that can scheme you open or a quarterback that's consistently willing to throw up those 50-50 balls. But like we talked about, not a great contested catch wide receiver. So he does have a crazy catch radius, and watch the highlight film. It's fun to watch. He makes some insane catches, but still overall not what I wanted to see out of him. And he didn't have the best catch of the year. That guy comes up in two more players.
I would just add, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. And I think the numbers maybe show that maybe going away from him a bit more on the press or just the offense, because I don't see him getting losing the press coverage a ton on the next level. But if there's one weakness in a wide receiver's game that I'm the least concerned about when they get to the NFL, one thing that can be taught the most out of anything is route running, especially when you get to next level coaches, NFL coaches, wide receiver coaches. So that's one thing where and again, we touched on it. He's 20 years old. He has a lot to learn. He's still very raw. That's one area. Obviously, he's going to need to make a huge leap there, but that would be the one area I think is most expected that a 20-year-old wide receiver would make that leap. Quentin Johnson notwithstanding.
All right, so let's move on to player style comps. My peak is Cortland Sutton. I think that he could be that red zone threat, really do well area of the field, win some contested catches eventually if he learns that style. But I do think his floor could go as low as N'Keal Harry. So those are my two comps for Keon Coleman. What do you got, Evan?
I have him as a worse Allen Robinson.
Oh, and you're so low on Allen Robinson.
I am so low on him. I knew you were going to crack up with this. Me and Dan have gone back and forth on Allen Robinson when he was relevant.
So funny, man.
And, yeah. How those bets go? By the way, do we end up?
The first year is fine. After that, that's so hot. Like, oh man, the Rams paid him. Maybe they'll use him. No.
So I hit on my expectations for Allen Robinson, and I do think he's going to be worse.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. I saw a lot of Allen Robinson in him too. I mean, that's probably the most similar play style would be. So he could have a couple good years like A Rob did, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to be that guy that is going to be a future franchise guy of the receiver. I mean, he could be a decent wide receiver too on a team, but I don't know if I ever really see him being a number one on any pro NFL team.
Yeah.
So I'm clearly the highest of the four on Keon. And my two comps are going to show it, and it kind of plays into my landing spot as well. But a slightly slower Michael Pittman. I think he will be that style receiver in the NFL. I think, especially in a PPR format, I think this guy's going to have a tremendous amount of value for some time. The chain movers, they don't get the headlines as much. I could definitely see him not being a big touchdown guy, just like Michael Pittman. But I think he's going to get a lot of receptions. I think he'll get a lot of targets in the intermediate and the short area. And the other comp I have, which is even more lofty, he's a slightly faster Chad Johnson.
Whoa, that is a big comparison there, Lee.
Keon Coleman is faster than Chad Johnson?
He is.
He is technically. I was actually it was on that thing that I was just pulling up with the 4 times. Yeah, a little bit faster. He's technically faster than Larry Fitzgerald and Jerry Rice too.
Chris Carter.
Chris Carter as well.
There were some good some all-time receivers that were slower than his 40.
There's no way that we're comparing
You're
him
saying
to
the 40 time though.
No, Chad
in
Johnson.
game, you guys think that he plays? Hold on, and Chad Johnson ran a 4.57, where Keon ran a 4.61.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yeah, so a little bit slow, at least slower than Chad Johnson, but yeah, he's up there with like slow wide receivers that have been great.
I don't know. That's wild to me. But
I can't get behind that at all.
Yeah, I agree. I disagree on that one. I don't know what's happening.
I brought it up. I brought those guys up to be like a point of why he's not like them.
So for the landing spot, I have the Baltimore Ravens. They need a guy. They really only have Zay Flowers at this point. Rashad Bateman's been pretty much a bust. They've talked about getting him more involved. And I do think overall Bateman still has talent. He was a decent prospect coming into the league. Just really hasn't done too much with it and has also faced injuries. But I think that they need that big body guy. And I think that Keon Coleman could be that for them. Mason, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I could see him. I might be a lot lower on people than him. I could see him going 3rd round, honestly. And I think that he could go to like the Patriots or something like that. I mean, he's got the build to just he's a general receiver. Can do a lot of different things. I could see if he does fall to the 3rd, the Patriots taking him, because I don't think they're more than likely drafting a quarterback with the 103, and they definitely need some receivers because they don't really have anyone at all besides Demario Douglas. So I mean Kendrick Bourne too, but it's Kendrick Bourne. So I could see him falling to the 3rd and maybe going there.
Okay, Lee.
So again, I think the ideal spot, and this was kind of some of the Chad Johnson comparison. I got him going in the 2nd to the Bengals as the number 2 to Jamar Chase to replace T. Higgins.
Where's T. Higgins going?
I think T. Higgins is going to end up in somewhere a little unexpected, but maybe not as unexpected. But I think the Raiders are going to make a move for T. Higgins.
Oh, that would be that'd be an awesome trio.
They have
a lot of guys that do different things.
They don't need him.
Yeah, that would be cool. And actually, I got Yoshi shares. I like Yoshi. So if T. Higgins goes, I like Yoshi as the wide receiver too. It'd be interesting to see him compete with Keon Coleman for that wide receivers 2 role. But I even going to the Colts, and kind of like if something happens to Michael Pittman, you can throw him in there, and you can also learn under him at the same time.
Interesting. Okay. So for Superflex rookie draft value, where do you guys have him going? Mason, I'll send it your way first this time.
I'm gonna say around like 208. That's kind of where I see him going. I mean, landing spot could definitely boost him up to like 206 or 205, 206, but that's where I more see him going, is around there, especially if my prediction he does fall to the third round. I could definitely see that.
All right, Evan.
I have him, and this is kind of like a range for me, 203 to 205. To 203 just doesn't feel right, especially because I already have to do some adjusting. Troy Franklin is moving back. He's moving back. I've made some adjustments already to what we talked about from last week. But yeah, Keon Coleman probably realistically 204. We'll meet in the middle, 204.
All right, Lee.
Clearly, I'm higher than the rest of you guys. I got him at 111, 112. And like I said, I think the Bengals would be a great landing spot for him. And I do think that they do trade T. Higgins before the season starts.
You moving
All
Troy
right.
Franklin back then too? You had Troy Franklin at the 111, 112.
Yeah, I'm dropping Troy Franklin. I may drop him all the way out of the draft.
He's moving back.
Get him out of here.
Troy Franklin's landing spot will matter a lot. Definitely.
Troy Franklin looked good in college because, like I've said, one of the best quarterbacks in the league was thrown to him, or one of the best.
Knicks. Let's go, baby.
Yeah.
No, I'm here for the bow. I'm here for the bow heat. I'm clearly the lowest on him. I have him at 211. I don't think that he's going to pan out personally. I think that maybe he'll have some high touchdown seasons if he figures out the contested catch and how to utilize his body. Maybe gets a little bit better at route running. But not Chad Johnson is my new note. All right. So here's another player, Roman Wilson out of Michigan. 5'11", 185, 22.7 years old. Fantasy Pros has him wide receiver 10, and as far as rookies go, wide receiver 64. And then PFF has him as the 47th wide receiver overall, which I thought was pretty interesting. Who here is high on Roman Wilson? I'll let you start off.
I am high on Roman Wilson. Lee, you can take it away, though.
I'm fairly high. And real quick, do you know one other wide receiver who did not surpass 800 yards in his college career?
What ridiculous example are we going to get? Who is it?
It's Chad Johnson. What do you know?
What? Johnson had them feet, boy. He's not getting stuck at the line of scrimmage. There's no way that Chad Johnson was getting stuck on press coverage at the 8th percentile or whatever I saw. 11.8th percentile.
We'll see. Like I said, the tape, I didn't. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm on a limb with him, and I could definitely be wrong, but I'm going to remind you guys if I'm not. So Roman Wilson, I like him. I feel like his offense held him back as far as the production profile, which is what a lot of people are saying for JJ as well. I like Roman as a pro prospect more than JJ. I think none of us really love JJ, and he's been skyrocketing up there. But Roman has pretty good speed. He is a vertical threat. You know, his route running is impeccable. So he won't have that transition that Keon will as far as the route running. He's going to be able to go right into the NFL. Not just speed, but just his lateral movement. Just kind of that being intuition. You know, the intuition of knowing when to cut off a route or when to move his feet or move back. I mean, I was very impressed there. The big thing that I saw was the big spots. Again, production profile not huge, but some really huge catches. You know, when Michigan needed a big third down, everybody on the field knew it was going to Roman Wilson, and he was still able to get open and make that catch. So that's the kind of guy that I'm looking for. I don't see him ever being a wide receiver one in the NFL, but I could certainly see him being a top-end wide receiver two or one of the best wide receiver threes in the league, to be honest.
Yeah, no, you pretty much that's a lot of what I talked about too, or just saw on his tape too. He just seems pretty good at everything. The one thing that stood out to me is something that doesn't show on tape: his dedication to the game. And this is something that is hard to assess. But when I found out that he commuted to high school every day by plane because he lived in Hawaii, he took a plane every single day to get to high school to practice and back. and he maintained a better GPA than me as well while doing that. So that's just showing huge dedication to the game. My player comp with him, and I'm going to go a little bit out of order, is to somebody else who also shows equivalent dedication to the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown, because he catches 101 balls after practice every day, because and he has that same, I think, level of dedication to the game as Amon-Ra for sure. So that's really the biggest thing that stood out to me, as well as just his ability to perform in almost every aspect of the game.
There's no way to compare him to.
Great point. I've never heard that. That is insane. I want to know
how rich is his parents?
Who's paying for
afford a plane ticket every day.
Who's paying for that?
Jesus.
I don't know how it was all settled, but it is a fact. He literally flew to school every single day just to go to a better school to play football.
Wow,
that's dedication to the game.
You know, where was that, parents? Why can't you fly me to a better school to go play baseball? I'd be in the MLB.
I mean, it's tough when you live in Hawaii. You're really limited with the schools. So yeah,
fair. Mason.
I mean, yeah, I do like him a lot. I think Roman Wilson is going to be a very good NFL receiver. Like Lee said, I don't necessarily think he has the ability to take over as that wide receiver one. I don't think he'll be a top 12, but I think he's going to be a solid wide receiver 2. And I mean, he's got good speed.
Same thing about Amon-Ra, if I'm not mistaken. Huh?
What was that?
I said funny. People said the same thing about Amon-Ra, if I'm not mistaken. Huh?
Yeah, but Roman Wilson isn't a sun god. Like,
fair.
But I mean, yeah, he's a good route runner. He's got good speed and nothing crazy speed wise, but good speed, and he does attack the ball a lot. I mean, I do see why he's, the work effort from Amon-Ra. There's honestly some similarities. He's not as good as Amon-Ra. I mean, you know me, Amon-Ra is my wide receiver 1 in Dynasty.
Yeah, he's not as good. Not as good. I love Amon-Ra as well. He's not as good, but he's a good player comp.
Yeah, I mean, he's just got good hands and ability to catch the ball from stuff that is away from him, and I just think that's good. He's good at changing speed. He's a good route runner. I think he's going to be a very high target guy. I mean, he might not be a big play guy necessarily in the NFL, but I do think he's going to have a lot of targets going his way.
Yeah. And you guys touched on most of the positives. I would have said the reliable hands, 7 drops over 157 targets in the 4 years that he played. Also incredibly tough. He just makes plays over the middle, takes shots. And for a guy who's 5'11", 185, he takes some rough shots and springs right back up. So he's definitely got that motor. The one thing I wanted to share, again, if you're on the YouTube, you can see the Matt Harmon's reception perception. He did not have success on most routes other than the dig and the comeback. He also had a 19th percentile success rate against man, 11th against zone, and 15th against press coverage. Not great. I feel like that one of the things that are talked about him is that he's this great route runner. Seems like it's not showing up on at least what's been charted by Matt Harmon. So we have yet to see that. And then on top of it, I think for a smaller guy, I would expect a little bit better yak ability. He forced 9 missed tackles on 107 receptions in his 4-year career. And also he's like pretty much stuck to the slot. He's 68.7% in 2022 and 90.1% in 2023. To me, he feels like the Blake Corum of wide receivers. Funny that they're on the same team, but a guy that, is good at a lot of things, but doesn't have a calling card that's going to really shine at the next level. So really quick, let's hit our player style comps. Just say it because we got to wrap this up for the radio broadcast. I have Khalil Shakir. Both are tough, same size, roughly same 40.
Tyler Lockett.
I got Tyler Lockett as well. I see a lot of Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett's an incredible route runner.
Danny, you are so high on Tyler Lockett too. I love it too.
Tyler Lockett's been incredible his entire career.
I think that's a fair comp.
Wow. Hold on. All right. If you're here for the radio broadcast, that's going to wrap it up. But if you are, wanting to join us on the YouTube, we're going to wrap up the rest of Roman Wilson and then touch on Ricky Pearsall. We'll be back next week with some more wide receivers. Still got a lot of guys to talk about. All right. First things first. I gotta get this these Tyler Lockett stats up
Okay,
in front of
so
me.
while you pull the Tyler Lockett stats, guys, I know everybody that hung out with us and stayed after were wondering what the hell was Evan talking about, because it's a mind
All the
blowing.
time. I'm always wondering what the hell he's talking about.
I mean, me and Evan are on the same page here lately. So, it used to be me and you, Dan, but, now it's me and Evan. I don't know what happened.
Clearly, we're different on rookies. Like we
We're
assess
different on
NFL
rookies.
talent
I
the
think
same,
and I'm
but
high on rookies and higher than Dan, so I think we might have our alignment on rookies.
Yeah,
here.
we found our alignment. So one thing, he was flying. He's from Hawaii. He was flying from Maui to Honolulu. He wasn't flying to the mainland. That was my first thought. I was like, holy shit.
right.
flying-
Like, how can you afford that?
Right. You're flying to LA or,
Oh yeah,
California,
no, I
obviously.
should have specified that.
But his dad worked for the airlines. So they were able to get discounted flights. That's how they were able to afford it. So that makes it make more sense. I don't know how long the flight from Maui to Honolulu is, but it can't be that long. I mean,
But
it's
throw him
not
in the cockpit.
Go through security.
He's not even here. What are you talking about?
Every day.
Oh yeah, I mean, still, I don't take away from it. I was just envisioning him flying from Hawaii to LA every day, and like,
Right.
and that's a 6-hour flight, just a flight, like just trying to make those logistics work. But that's a great nugget that you shared, and that does show his dedication, and I'm a little higher on him just from knowing that. So,
There we go. That's what I want to hear, Lee. That's what I want to hear.
virtual fit.
All right.
Hey, I
Now
just
that-
want to say real quick, you guys are talking about all the alignment with each other. You guys never have alignment with me. And, every year I'm just going to say something to prove you guys wrong, how you doubted me about
Yeah,
something.
that's true.
You have your Jacoby Myers take from last year. You can carry
Last
that.
year we had some alignment. We did.
So Tyler Lockett, really quick.
And you used the word incredible, did you not?
Yeah, he's an incredible route runner, is what I said. And
I heard you say he was an incredible wide receiver.
well, I mean, we can go back. We have it recorded, luckily. But regardless, I'll pull up the reception perception for him too. I mean, I'm sure they don't have 2023 up quite yet. Yeah, the last one they have up is 2022. So even at that point, how old was he? Probably like 29, 30. 96th percentile against man, 86th against zone, 84th against press. He's got 4 seasons over 1,000 yards. Also has a 965-yard reception season, so very close on one of those. He has 5 seasons over 10 touchdowns, and this is all while the dude's a whole 5'10", 182. And not today, like most of the time spent not in today's modern NFL where they're getting skinnier guys open. He did this on the outside. He's got the release package. He's got the route running technicality, and he's just a fucking stud. So, and you're here after hours, so hopefully you can accept.
I'm not
that word.
disagreeing that Tyler Lockett is a hell of an NFL player. I think he's a slightly above average NFL wide receiver. I would not call him
Slightly?
okay.
I just disagree.
I mean, he's had 1 season of more than 84 catches. To be incredible, I feel like you got to be putting up 100 catches. He has no yak ability. Now, some of that is he just goes down because he doesn't want.
He does go down. Yeah, protect the body. And hey, I'd do the same thing. If I didn't go down, I'd get wrecked in my first NFL game.
I'm just saying,
But
as far as
no,
incredible goes, I think that's a very neat.
Well, I think
second.
the one thing you touched on was the receptions, and like he's had Doug Baldwin to compete with or DK Metcalf. Don't shrug at Doug Baldwin. What is it? Doug Baldwin was again a very solid wide receiver at the time he was with Tyler Lockett.
If you say Doug Baldwin was an incredible NFL wide receiver, I'm out.
I did not. I did not. Now
I saw him toast the Niners plenty of times, so
Well, that's when the Niners sucked.
yeah. I mean,
No, they don't. No, they don't.
That's when they did. They don't now.
Yeah, yeah.
When Doug Baldwin was toasting them, they were terrible.
Yeah, there were some years in there that were pretty bad, especially on the defensive side or offensive side too. I mean, we obviously had Nick Mullins running the ground for a couple of years, so you know, a couple rough years in there for the Niners.
Right, yeah. And just again, to touch on it real quick, the years that Doug Baldwin was popping off over 1,000 yards, 2015 and 16, that's when Lockett was a rookie stepping into it. As soon as Baldwin leaves, Lockett takes off. So I don't know. I think that he's above average wide receiver. That's not the point of this episode, though.
I said he was above average. I agreed he's above average, but he's not.
Yeah,
incredible.
and I wasn't saying Doug Baldwin was incredible. Tyler Lockett's incredible, in my opinion.
No.
I thought we were still talking about Lockett. Doug
No.
Baldwin.
Lockett is incredible. Doug Baldwin's above average and just happened to be at the peak of his career, while Lockett was a rookie stepping into the Seahawks system.
I'll give Tyler Lockett great, but not incredible.
We'll have to create a whole tier system of what these words mean, I guess. All right,
tier-based nomenclature.
Let's move on to a landing spot for Roman Wilson. I personally have the Saints. I feel like they got their guy that can do everything in Olave. They're a field stretcher in Shaheed. They're a solid receiving tight end in Juwan Johnson, but they need that guy that can just operate from the slot, and that's going to be Roman Wilson, in my opinion. I got him going at 213 to the Saints. Mason, what do you got here?
So I don't know if it will happen, but I kind of got him going to the Colts. I mean,
I feel like they already got Josh Downs to fill that role.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I really hope Josh Downs turns out to be a very solid, serviceable fantasy wide receiver. I caught into the hype a lot this season when Josh Downs had like the 2-3 week stretch where he was doing really good. Kind of bought into that. But I don't think the organization necessarily has a ton of faith in Josh Downs. I mean, they don't even really have a good receiving tight end either. I think they definitely are going to be looking into adding some more depth to the receiving core. I mean, they got a young quarterback that they committed a lot to in Anthony Richardson. I just see them definitely going and trying to bring in a little more help for him. And maybe Roman Wilson and Josh Downs battle it out a little more.
Okay. Lee?
Yep.
So, not the sexiest landing spot in your initial thoughts. I got him going to New England in the second round, but I think it's a spot where he could excel. You got Pop Douglas and nobody else. Let's assume they're drafting Drake May or Jaden Daniels. You're going to need to give that guy weapons. I actually, as much as I would absolutely hate it if Marvin Harrison went to New England at 3, I don't see that happening. They're going quarterback, and I think they gotta find a wide receiver that can be the go-to. I always love when a quarterback and a wide receiver get drafted together. It seems like there's a certain bond that those guys form in rookie camp that other guys can't replicate. So I see him going to New England and being very productive there.
And I just want to touch on that. I mean, yeah, obviously the bond between, rookies getting drafted together, but I don't know if I see that necessarily because New England needs some O-line to protect their franchise quarterback that they're committing the 103 to. But I mean, I could see it happening, but yeah, they definitely need some O-line there.
You guys talking about bonds between players and positions. What about bonds between the player and the coach? I got him going to the Chargers, reuniting with Jim Harbaugh.
Reunited.
Lost our route runner in Keenan Allen, and I think Roman Wilson is a great route runner to have reunited. Feels so good.
That's what y'all came here for, the after hours on YouTube. You got that Lee hitting you with them vocals.
The slow jams.
Yeah. All right. And then really quick, the last thing I wanted to touch on, I kind of already talked about it with the lack of yak ability, but Roman Wilson, not known for breaking tackles. He had on the charted routes by Matt Harmon, he broke 11.8% of the first attempted tackle. He was dropped by the first tackle on 88.2% and broke 0% of the second tackles from defenders coming in. So I feel like you need a guy in the slot that can do something after the catch. And Roman Wilson doesn't seem to be that at the collegiate level. So I don't know if he'll get it done at the next level. really quick, just say the name. We'll move on to, or say the spot, and we'll move on to Ricky Pearsall. I have him. I'm low on him clearly. I have him at the 304 in rookie. Yep, late. That's where I'm at. I know that's not where consensus will be, so I'm not getting any of Roman Wilson. But where do you guys have him going?
201, 202.
202.
Oh,
for
that
me.
is a wild difference between you guys.
Yes,
Wow.
202.
Vastly
202 for
different.
me. 202. Lee, we're on point.
Wow.
I say about
hips passing in the night. I don't know what happened, Dan.
I say 204,
Rookie
205.
204.
These
205.
rookies got us all twisted.
I'm curious to see if where do you guys like stop drafting wide receiver and go for the running backs?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up the same point because I think that I'm higher on the running back class than the consensus is.
Yeah.
I'm starting to take running backs at the 202.
Yeah, mine's 205.
Okay, so as far as the running backs go, there's two. If we assume that they get second round capital, that are probably going at the back end of the first. The Dallas Cowboys running back that they draft in the second round is going in the first round.
And arguably the Chargers too, if they take a guy.
The Chargers was up. We're back. We're back.
There we go,
back.
baby.
The Chargers is the other one. If they take a running back, honestly, the first 3 rounds for Dallas or the Chargers, I almost called them San Diego. They'll always be San Diego.
They are. That's crazy.
San Diego Superchargers. So either one of those teams drafts a running back in the first 3 rounds. They are at the very latest 201, 202. And that's why I give a couple of pick range because I don't want to get pigeonholed before we actually find out draft spots. So being a little bit of a coward there, but that's okay. So, yeah, I think those 2 running backs, and it's as much as I like Braylon Allen, if he's not one of those guys, then he's going to drop because those are the top 2 running backs. Honestly, as long as they get that draft capital, it doesn't matter which running back.
Yeah. And honestly, we'll touch on it in later episodes. Like we said, next week will be wide receiver part 3, and then we'll move on to running backs after that. But not to spoil anything, I have a sleeper running back that I think is really going to produce at the next level, especially if he gets the draft capital.
Jalen
and
Wright.
I think that what?
Jalen Wright.
I mean, I love Jalen Wright, and he's got the speed, and he's another guy that if he gets the day 2 draft capital and a good landing spot, he's got not to this degree, but he's got that Devin Achane breakaway ability where he can take a few touches and turn it into a really productive day. So one guy that I think can kind of do it all that's not really talked about anywhere is Marshawn Lloyd. I loved his tape. I think that he gets anytime there's an opportunity to get extra yards out of it, he finds the hole, he hits it hard, he runs through contact. And that's why I like him even a little bit more than Jalen Wright. I have them back to back though in rookie picks.
Yeah.
So this is why you tune in to the after show to hear about Dan talking about finding it hard and hitting the hole. Because, that's what you're looking for from a running back. And we all know that. You want your running backs to find the hole and hit it as hard as humanly possible.
100%.
Yep.
Who was the coach for Jacksonville a couple years back? He was the Ohio State coach.
Urban Meyer.
I went to the Urban Meyer School of Coaching.
Yeah, there it is.
It's the hole's hard, baby.
One's out here kicking kickers in the shin.
Yeah.
Leave the damn kickers alone, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So let's move into the last person we'll talk about today. Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. He is 6'1", 189 pounds, 23.5 as he was a 5-year player in college. We're going to see more 5-year players than any other era of football just because of COVID. So, that's what happened here. It's understandable situation. But overall, even with the age being at 23.5 years old, I do think that he's got a lot of promise heading into the NFL. Some of the positives, I think that overall, he's got great route running ability. He's got above average top end speed. He's also a guy that can do a little bit after the catch, nothing crazy. He's not going to make two guys miss. That was just 3.4% of his reception or the charted receptions on reception perception, but made the first guy miss on 31% of his receptions. That's pretty damn solid. The acceleration is pretty great. He had the third fastest three cone. I'm sorry, he had the fastest three cone and the third fastest 20-yard shuttle. And then I think he's going to continue to grow at the next level. He's got really good ball skills for a guy that's kind of, more of that slot wide receiver type. And then one of the biggest things is the two biggest things, detailed route runner and has great vision. He really knows how to use his blockers after the catch. So overall, I was really impressed by him. And it was not because I don't watch college football before, the NFL season ends when I'm starting to scout. I was really impressed for a guy that I knew nothing about. So where do you guys land on Ricky Pearsall? Evan, I'll send it your way first.
I love Ricky Pearsall. Yeah, you kind of hit on a lot of this already, but he can make spectacular catches. You guys have to have seen that one catch. Unbelievable.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Best catch maybe I've ever seen.
It's great, and getting hit by two guys afterwards and maintaining possession.
Immediately. Backhanded. So if you guys haven't seen it, look up his highlight tape. I'm sure it's the first one on there. I'm pretty sure it is. Backhanded, one-handed catch while two defenders are coming in full speed and pop him. Yep. And he lands it. It was incredible.
I honestly don't know how this guy hasn't talked about more just off that one play too. But his ability he also is like great hands, great ability to go get the ball, handles press coverage very well. I think his adjustment to the NFL will be very seamless. I really like him.
Yeah, really quick, just to touch on the reliable hands portion. 6 dropped passes in 5 years of college, 233 targets in just 6 drop passes. Reliable as hell.
Great hands.
Yes. Lee, what you got here?
Yeah, so we're finally coming back around. I'm probably not quite as high on him as you are, but I mean, he has a lot of tools. I mean, again, you mentioned 6'1", 200 pounds. That's kind of what you're looking for. Although the little guys are really starting to carve a niche. That used to be the minimum height. Not back in the day, but there for a good chunk of my youth as an NFL fan, when you guys were still, drinking milk. But the ball skills, like Evan mentioned, he seems to be able to grab the ball out of the air with pretty good efficiency. He's got good length for his size. And the other thing that you can really see, depending on the offensive coordinator and, what kind of play calling, but he's a guy that can get the ball out of the backfield. They use him on a lot of jet sweeps in Florida. He's a guy that you put him on your offense and you want to try to develop ways to get him to touch the ball.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So some of the negatives that I had here, I will say he's not quite as agile as I expected him to be. Again, we were just talking about it. Those guys that you're expecting to be able to throw into the slot, I really want them making guys miss after the catch. They're not going to get that press, likely to get a little bit more of a buffer while they're beginning their route. Not a ton of yards after the catch. Not terrible by any means, but didn't make a ton of guys miss. He had 15 missed tackles forced on 160 receptions in his 5-year NFL career, or collegiate career. So that was the glaring negative to me. I also said that he's not a wide receiver that can hit full speed, stop, and then start again right back up at full speed like we see with some of the other wide receivers here. And then on top of it, I didn't see a lot of flexibility in his movement, not a ton of bend. It's again not a terribly glaring issue, but that's something that I wanted to see a little bit more out of him. See what you got.
He's a 6'1" white guy, Dan. You want him to be fast and agile? What are we looking for here? Come on, you're asking for too much.
Usually the white guy's got a little bit of bend, a little agility. Do what you can with it.
So yeah, I mean, I think that the acceleration was probably the thing that stood off to me. He does have the good long speed, but the acceleration's not really there. I definitely see him more as a slot guy as well, but I think where he's going to get drafted, he can add a lot to an NFL team without having to be, quite as agile or quite the acceleration. Because again, we talked about the route running as well. The route running's there. Like you said, he doesn't have the flexibility. He's not particularly strong, so press coverage is something that if you put him on the outside could be an issue in the NFL. But again, I don't want to pigeonhole every wide receiver in the NFL as a slot guy, but he kind of fits that mold to me as just your prototypical. Like he could be a top 5 slot wide receiver in the NFL if everything goes right for him.
Yeah, and he did still run the majority of his routes at the collegiate level from the slot, so likely to repeat in the NFL. Yeah, Mason.
Yeah, and I was gone during the positives, but I don't have a ton of positives on him, honestly. Oh shoot, hold up. All right, there we go. I mean, yeah, his negatives is that like Lee said, his acceleration really is not the best. He works better, in the long speed. He's not going to be getting the short breaks away, and his strength necessarily isn't there. I don't know how well he's going to fight through contact in the NFL. So I mean, that's really what I got to say. I mean, his explosiveness is very inconsistent. So I don't know. I'm really not that high up on him. Obviously, I could be proven wrong, but I'm not that high up on him.
No, I hear you. I think that overall, like we're talking fantasy football. I think that he's going to make a bigger impact on an NFL team, just being like a chain mover, a guy that can get open, an easy target for a quarterback. I don't think he's going to have as big as of a fantasy impact, unless he really ends up on a team that just needs the guy that can get open and is just peppered with volume. So we touched on all the negatives for the player style comp. I have shorter Tyler Boyd with better long speed.
Yeah.
Evan?
Shoot. I can see the Tyler Boyd there too. He was another guy that I kind of had as like so I had Allen Robinson twice. One is worse Allen Robinson. I have Ricky Pearsall as a better Allen Robinson.
Interesting.
So kind of similar, but yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I see going in the first 2 rounds for sure. And I think that there's probably a solid at least 10 wide receivers are getting taken in the first 2 rounds this year. I don't see a world where there's less than 10 in the top 2 rounds, but yeah, he's probably like one of the cutoff guys that make it in the second round for me.
So that'll be a first spot we disagree on, Evan, but it's got to come at some point. I don't think he's a second rounder. I think he's an early-ish third rounder.
Oh, we're going to disagree with somebody later next week too. Trust me.
I'm sure we're going to disagree on Ted.
Oh, I know we are. Right? There's one you had kind of given a little spoiler out there, and I know we're very off on him.
I would draft Tez above Ricky Pearsall. I would. But as far as
he's the North Carolina guy.
Hey, I mean,
you got to throw those disclaimers out to the people so they know when your offlandish takes are out there.
I mean, it's not like I'm wearing the hat, or showing everyone.
That's true.
I've got him going to Jacksonville in the third, and I do think that's a pretty good landing spot for him. Staying in the state of Florida, you lose Calvin Ridley, but you gain Gabe. We'll see what Zay Jones still under contract.
Yeah, he is, but he's also could be a cap cut at some point.
I think that's the key there. I think Zay Jones, they probably don't want to pay him the money, and I'm a Carolina guy, but I'm an Eastern Carolina guy, and I love Zay, probably the best wide receiver in the history of East Carolina University. Tremendous player, and I think he'll catch on and still continue his career. But you probably don't want to pay him. You just paid Gabe Davis. I do kind of like Ricky's contrast. If you have Gabe Davis as your deep guy, you've got your intermediate covered there, and then Ricky's kind of your short guy, your slot guy. So we'll see. I think he's a third round pick, though. I don't think he's going in the second.
The only thing is Ricky mainly operated out of the slot in this last 2 seasons when he was with Florida, 71.8% from the slot and 56.5% from the slot. Christian Kirk's their slot guy in Jacksonville. He's got 71.3% from the slot was the minimum in his time during Jacksonville.
I think you see Christian Kirk move to the outside more. With just everything that he's getting paid, with Ridley gone, I don't know how successful it'll be, but I kind of feel like that's the move. If you draft, Pearsall,
if he goes there for sure.
And I think Kirk does have that ability at this point in his career. I think I'm probably higher on him than a lot of people are. I think Christian Kirk has the ability to be the outside receiver.
If we're back on track, man, yeah, I think Christian Kirk's a huge buy low right now.
Agreed.
I think he's going to be peppered with targets.
See, I don't see how he's buy low. I don't think his value took a dip.
Well, what would you send for him? What do you think is a fair trade offer for, let's say, just rookie draft pick?
Second rounder?
Like where? Early?
Probably mid.
I mean, I personally would rather have Christian Kirk over, Xavier Worthy even. I know I'm a little bit lower on him than most other people, but I think Kirk is going to be a consistent difference maker. And I think that Xavier Worthy is going to be kind of boom or bust with that speed. Other guys, I would take him over. I would take Christian Kirk over Ricky Pearsall by a long shot. Troy Franklin. I know you guys will probably disagree, but Adonai Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell's right on that cusp, though, just because he's got the youth and there's so much potential. I do see the world where Adonai Mitchell's a bust and Kirk has 2-3 years as wide receiver too.
Yeah, I'd definitely take every wide receiver we talked about before. Kirk, maybe not Keon, but yeah.
See, this is where I think we disagree a little bit, Evan. Is like I said, the productivity at the next level to me is there are so many of these guys who just never even come close to the level of productivity that Christian Kirk has displayed. I'm curious. I'm going to ask you, Dan, because I'm pretty sure I know where Mason and Evan would go here. You're a Rashee Rice owner, and somebody offers you Christian Kirk. Do you take it?
Oh yeah.
I know you.
That was to Dan, but oh yeah.
I knew Evan and Mason, just based on what you said earlier, Rashee Rice.
That's a little tougher for me, honestly. Because
it is honestly pretty tough, just because Rashee Rice has the youth, and I'm not weighing in the suspension too much. There's so much unknown with Rashee Rice right now, and Marquise Brown's going to be added. The NFL draft is yet to happen. Travis Kelce is still going to be the first look, and they ran the offense through Isaiah Pacheco last year. So if we're talking as a contender, I would take Christian Kirk for sure. If we're talking as a rebuilding team, obviously you want to go with the youth, but it is pretty close there. Overall, if you're just right in the middle of the pack, I'll say Rashee Rice. I would rather build towards the future than take Christian Kirk in the next few years as a wide receiver 2, than maybe Rashee Rice eventually breaking out to become a consistent wide receiver 2 for a much longer period of time.
Yeah, I think I'd take Kirk. I think I'd take Kirk, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give up Rashee Rice for 2/3.
That's why I expected you just to slam dunk Kirk, even though you were
right.
I'm really low on Kirk though too, as well. Yeah. So
I would be in the tank for a week if this trade gets offered either direction. I don't know what the hell I would do.
Right, that was a great question. It's a really tough one until we see the fallout from this, and we might not see the fallout until literally next season. We've seen that happen multiple times before, where people are facing legal issues and they just push it down the road until it can be handled in the next.
Kamara's stuff got pushed out a year, and that's kind of the most recent comp, I would say. I mean, he had a whole season where he played under kind of the cloud of them working it out. So I think that's a good point, Dan. It's possible. We said we sold Rashee Rice out for redraft, but if this thing gets pushed down the road and there's no suspension until 25, then that changes the whole game.
Right. I mean, like the Joe Mixon would be another good example.
Good
There's
point.
the whole thing, like the story that came out at the beginning of that was wild. Like they were saying that he's like pointing guns at kids' faces and
Right,
stuff like
right.
that, and like screaming in the streets and stuff. Literally nothing came of it. I don't know. I'm not even entirely sure what happened. Whether there's some type of payoff
Yeah,
or he's
that's a lot of
proven not
speculation. There's
guilty.
nothing proven that he did like any of those things. So.
I mean, Jalen Carter was in a car. He wasn't driving, but he was a part of a street race that killed somebody, and he didn't serve a single.
Yeah,
minute.
the coach was driving.
Great point. He
She
only
wasn't
dropped
she was
like,
a staff member.
It was
Don't put that on
whatever.
Kirby.
Whatever.
Don't put that on
Staff
Kirby.
member, it's the same thing.
but like you're saying, he
She's
only
like a
dropped
masseuse.
like
She-
what 7 or 8.
Not the head
draft
coach.
picks?
I thought he was a coach of.
No, she was like a
I thought he
masseuse or a physical therapist on the team. She wasn't a.
But kind of like you're saying, like Jalen Carter only drafted like 7 or 8 draft picks or so. You know, like that's not a world of a difference, and never got suspended for it, and it resulted in someone dying.
In the NFL
So-
world, talent overcomes all. Even
He
though
wasn't
they're trying to
driving.
be-
He wasn't driving. He's just a passenger.
I mean, he was a part of it.
Here's
They
the
sued
thing.
him.
He said, no, let me jump out of this car moving 80 miles an hour.
I mean,
I don't
come
know,
on.
man. If you're in the car while
Come on.
someone dies, and then you get the hell out of there,
What are you gonna do when there's a crazy driver at the wheel and it's a player? It's a personnel.
Come on. I mean,
Did you
let's
work
be
for it?
are
real.
you gonna
You're-
run?
You're
Are
a
you gonna get
star
out of there?
How
player
are you
on the
gonna
team.
run? You're in a fucking car.
You're a star player on
After
the
the
team.
crash?
The masseuse goes nuts and is racing out of control. Like, come on, tell me he was. Again, this is all speculation, allegation, so nobody sue us. But
Yes.
you're the star defensive lineman on the team for which she works. Don't tell me he wasn't encouraging it. I mean, there's no world I can see where he's not encouraging and telling her to go faster. If he's telling her to stop, he can get her fired tomorrow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And
Like, I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at the bar there, but I mean, there's no world to me where Jalen Carter is a scared passenger in that.
Right.
that-
Exactly.
you know.
I was just gonna say that, where this like 280-pound monster of a man is just fully out of control of the situation. Also, Lee touched on it. We don't know shit, guys. So don't
Please, don't do it.
we're not lawyers. So don't take the legal portion of this with take it with a grain of salt.
And if you do sue
but-
somebody, Tyler Lamb, sue Tyler Lamb, not us.
Yeah. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. So we're moving on to the projected landing spot. Lee, you
Well,
already
we're
touched
still
on
actually
yours.
talking rookie receivers.
Yeah,
Yes, we still got just a little bit left of Ricky Pearsall. I got him going to the Eagles. I think it's a perfect landing spot for him. You got AJ Brown can do it all. Devonta Smith can do it all. Mix it up. Throw Pearsall in the slot as a slot-only wide receiver, but can still get it done. I have him going at 221 at the 53rd overall spot. I could see him slipping a little bit later than that, especially depending on how the first round goes with all of these other wide receivers. Overall, Ricky Pearsall is my wide receiver 9 in this rookie draft class. So I think there's a lot of other guys that can that have that true trump card that maybe Pearsall doesn't, but his overall top end speed along with the route running, I think is going to allure enough teams to get the draft pick in the second round. Now let's say Superflex rookie draft. Evan, where are you taking Ricky Pearsall in a Superflex rookie draft?
I would take him at the 201, and my projected landing spot for him was.
Whoa.
I thought you guys were looking at my notes because you brought up Christian Kirk. I would have him going to the Jags. I think that would be great.
There you go.
Same page again.
Mason?
I have them going to the Titans. Obviously, they
Yeah.
signed Ridley to that deal, but D-Hop is aging a lot. They definitely need to be looking to a future wide receiver, some guy that can definitely develop, and I think they will be taking it. I think he falls to the 3rd, and I think that's around the point where Titans would feel comfortable drafting a wide receiver.
The
I
only
would
thing
say
is the
there
Titans don't have a 3rd round pick.
Well, that's
Oh,
another
well,
only thing. But
I was
giving up
unaware of
on
that,
Traylon
so
Burks.
I guess I'm wrong. All right.
They could take him in the 2nd, but 206 is a little bit early. I think that all of us
Yeah.
think he'll go.
Yeah, I think he's
Unless-
late second.
unless they're giving up on Treylon Burks, I was going to say third, but
Right.
I mean, you've got those two veterans. You just paid Calvin Ridley a ton of money. You really have – if they were to draft a receiver that early, it would be a huge indictment on the first-round pick, Treylon Burks. But
I
I mean,
agree
you
with
never
that. Right, it could happen, and I do like the fit if Treylon wasn't there. I do think that they're expecting Treylon to take a step up after an injury-riddled season. I think he can do work as that big-bodied slot wide receiver because clearly Ridley and Hopkins are much better outside wide receivers. So I think that could benefit Burks. I don't see him as a buy still. I'm still way too far down on him after his first 2 seasons. But I got Ricky Pearsall going at 207. I think he's, right in the middle of the second round. He is solid. He's not great. He's going to do enough. I think he's going to get just enough draft capital to keep people interested. Not going to be the sexy pick of your rookie, your rookie draft class picks. But I do think that overall he is going to have, maybe one Hunter Renfro season where like Renfro was needed with the Raiders. Like if he's absolutely leaned on in like a Giants offense where there's nobody else there, I could see him getting enough volume to be a solid fantasy option. He's just not going to have those like, crazy week winning weeks for your team. He's just going to be a solid contributor as maybe your second or third flex, depending on your league.
I think real quick, I think I missed my player comp. I had him as Kadarius Toney with hands.
Interesting. Kadarius Toney's like obviously chooch, just like Chase Claypool. Chooch for sure. But but like, I mean, Kadarius Toney's just got that insane physical ability. So really quick before we move on, before we end the show, we still got a decent amount of players to talk about. We got, Xavier Leggett, Jalen Polk, Devontae Walker, your boy, Malachi Corley, Javon Baker, Malik Washington, Jalen McMillan, Brendan Rice, Mason's boy, and then Jermaine Burton, maybe Johnny Wilson. We'll get to some of those next week, but guys, of those guys that we just named that we didn't get a chance to talk about, who is the person that you're most interested in bringing up in a positive, honestly, positive or negative light, whichever you think is like way under or overvalued. Lee, let's kick it off to you first. I wonder who you're going to bring up.
Lee, who could it be? A guy who plays better than his numbers. Sometimes there are these guys who throw out all the combine numbers. Evan named some of the great wide receivers of all time who had crap combine numbers. And I'm not saying Tez Walker is that, but I'm saying he's a guy who plays on the field way faster and way more capable than what his numbers show. And I think he's a guy who only had one season to really show it on a higher level. And he didn't even have a whole season. He had 6 games, guys. He was suspended. The NCAA, the governor got involved. It was a whole rigmarole. But when he got on the field, he looked like, to me, there was three NFL players on that Carolina offense that really just popped. Obviously, Drake May, Amarion Hampton, the running back, will be an NFL running back when he leaves college, and Tez Walker. And those 3 guys really, as a Carolina fan, and not to be biased, but they all 3 look like clearly at least day 2 NFL draft picks, in my opinion. I think Hampton's going to be he's likely to come out next year. He could even wait another season, but probably next year. I think we're going to be talking about him this time next year, as a top running back. The guy I won't get into it because that's a whole other, conversation. But Tez Walker is explosive. There's a lot he has to learn. But if you put him in the right system with the right coaches, I think he could really surpass a lot of the guys we've already talked about today.
Yeah, I do like Tez Walker a lot. Evan, what's the name you would want to bring up?
Well, I know Lee's going to love this, but I love my boy Xavier Leggett. I love Xavier Leggett. Xavier Leggett. Like honestly, he's in the first round for me.
Hold on, first round of rookie drafts. You're saying, right?
No, super flex rookie draft. Yeah.
Yeah, super flex rookie. Yeah, I was just making sure you weren't saying NFL draft.
No, he's not going to be a first round NFL draft. Yeah,
I agree.
he's a first round player for me.
I also like him, but we'll talk a lot about him. I believe he's our next player up.
Yeah,
starting next week.
And I thought he should be brought up at least this week or even the week.
I would have loved to get to him. That was my goal, to get to at least him as our ending, but it's going to be a hot start because, again, very polarizing player. It's very clear the athletic ability on tape. However, how many times do you see a player that has only a fifth-year breakout at the collegiate level succeed in the NFL? Not very frequently. But Mason, who's the name that you want to bring up?
Brendan Rice. I mean, a couple quick points. I mean, he was at Colorado, and I went to college at Colorado. Got to see him play. That offense was horrible. Brendan Rice is one of the few actual good parts of that offense during those years. This is before Shador. Before the
I was about to say, the last season, the offense wasn't the problem. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, this. He was there before.
Okay.
Dion came over, so he played good with some pretty awful spots, and then going to USC. I mean, if you look at USC, their history of producing NFL level wide receivers, it's pretty damn good. And I mean, it could be a homer pick because I love Jerry, so I'm going to believe in his son. So.
I thought he was Rasheed's cousin. I didn't even know he was Jerry's son.
Oh yeah, no, Brendan Rice is Jerry's son.
Oh, Rasheed. All right, so the guy that I want to bring up is Malik Washington out of Virginia. Dude, super short. Feel like he's being discounted overall. He's also an older prospect. Definitely not great. But I feel like Virginia was he played 4 years at Northwestern, and I don't think he was utilized in the right way at all. Dude has insane shape. He is so agile. He can make guys miss. He's 5'8", about 191 pounds. He's kind of built almost like, almost with the BMI at least. He's more so like a running back stature. And he's got the elite agility, change of direction, break tackle, contact balance. On top of it, for being a whole 5'8", he had a 56.7% contested catch rate, and that was on 60 contested targets. That's way more than a higher percentage and way more targets than Keon Coleman saw. And like I said, it was 5 years, and at the collegiate level, he had 6 contested targets in the first 2 of those years. So the vast majority of that came on the back 3 years of his collegiate career. I think that he's not going to have high draft capital in the NFL, and he'll remain a sleeper, and I'm hoping so, because I think this guy's going to be able to really get it done at the next level if he lands on the right team that can utilize that open space and yards after catch ability. Oh, also most missed tackles forced amongst wide receivers. Yep.
No, if I didn't bring up if I didn't pick Leggett there, I was picking Malik Washington.
I like that. We rarely line up, so
I really like Malik. We talked about it a little bit too. Just guy produces. Guy just produces.
Right. Lee, did you have anything to say there? You were shaking your head.
I mean, the 1 year at Virginia, you can't really count for much because honestly, that is one of the worst collegiate offenses I've ever seen. So, I mean, he was. I don't hate that pick. I think he's a jag at the next level, but I think he could have a career. I don't see him breaking out, but I could see him making a roster for 5-6 years.
Interesting. Mason, anything to add to that?
I think I'm all good.
All right. That's going to end it here. We will kick it off next week. Still got a bunch of wide receivers to talk about. Xavier Leggett will lead it off, so we're going to have some heated debates. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell, do all that crap. We do truly appreciate it, though. So everyone have a great rest of your week. We'll be back next week with more wide receivers.
Draft.
Right.